that might seem like a bit of a bizarre question, really. Are you a woman, a man, or a person? And in fact, you are a man or a woman. You are not a person, you have a person. Now, that might sound like a bit of doublespeak, and it really actually is meant to be, because that's what they've been doing for a long time, is confusing the living daylights out of us and trying to trick us into something that we are not, so that they can control you and I and take things from us that are actually ours and put penalties against us when they have no business doing so. Now, I was on the Common Law Court group on Telegram the other night, and someone posted some slides from John Harris, who I believe passed away in 2015. He was a very bright lad and did a lot to bring forth knowledge, information and understanding, or inner standing I suppose, of the whole game that is afoot to keep us imprisoned and enslaved. Now, I thought it might be useful to go through these slides and just read through them, and I'll give you a little bit of commentary on there as well as we do. In addition to this, I'll put a link in the description where you can download the slides if you want to. Now, what we're actually going to do, there's a lot of definitions in here, and the definitions really give a lot of clarity to what the game is and what's actually going on. So let's crack on. Politics, pertaining to policy or the administration of the government. Policy, a plan or course of action as of a government, political party or corporation. A written contract or certificate of insurance. Acts of Parliament become statutes, primary legislation, which in turn are enacted and enforced by statutory instruments, secondary legislation. Council tax is a statutory instrument enacted on the 1st of April 1993 under its primary legislation, the Local Government Finance Act 1992. So let's first define statutory instrument. Statutory, created, defined, or relating to a statute, required by statute, conforming to a statute. Instrument, a written legal document such as a contract, lease, deed, will, or bond. Then we define society, and for me this is where it starts to get very interesting. So society and contract. Society, the socially dominant members of a community. A society is a number of persons, so there's that word persons, which is a fictional thing, it's not a real thing, united together by mutual consent in order to deliberate, determine and act jointly for some common purpose. Contract, an agreement between two or more persons that creates and modifies an existing relationship. Now, it's interesting there because contracts are between persons, but men and women, live things, have agreements. Offer, consideration and acceptance must exist for a contract to be made, so it has to have those three components. And then a constitution, the fundamental rules, written or unwritten, that establishes the character of a government by defining the basic principles to which a society must conform. You were not given a choice if you wanted to join this society. It was made for you at a time you could not express a choice. And you might want to have a think about that, because I've had these discussions with various individuals that wear uniforms with regard to what is the name of the society and when did I agree to become a member of the society and where do I pay my annual dues, and can you provide proof of all of that to me please? And of course they can't. Then we define statute. A legislative rule of society given the force of law by the consent of the governed, a rule as of a corporation. From neuter of Latin status, the legal character or condition of a person or thing. Also, therefore, by its own definition, it is not law. It is only given the force of law by the consent of the governed. By its own definition, it only applies to a person and not a man or a woman. Now that's really, really potent stuff, because acts and statutes do not apply to men and women, they apply to persons. So as long as you remember you're a man or a woman and they cannot prove that you are not, then it's going to be very hard for acts and statutes to apply to you. And let the fun begin. United Kingdom Corporation Limited. It seems that this country is a corporation and it has employees. And again, this is really interesting. The employees are not just civil surgeons, but everyone. If you have a national insurance number, that means you too are an employee of this corporation. Company policy of this corporation requires you, as an employee to pay tax and follow the legislative rules of that corporation, in this case, hey, Puss Cat, I see you coming in, and follow the legislative rules of that corporation, in this case, statutes. And in any company, if you break the rules, you will be disciplined under that company's legislation. Disciplinary procedures. The police of the United Kingdom Corporation are all companies run for profit too. As corporate policy enforcement officers, their job is to enforce the rules of the corporation. Now, if you've watched any of my other videos, you'll hear me refer to them either as peace officers or policy enforcement agents. This was what I was referring back to. The courts of the United Kingdom Corporation are all companies run for profit as well. If you break the rules, they will summons you to their place of business to discuss your punishment. Except they are not inviting you, you just think that they are. Even the highest court in the land is a corporation. What? Legalese, the language of the corporate employees. A language can be created and used by a society. A corporation can be such a society. Legalese is such a language. It is English, but some words have very different meanings. Legalese is the language of the law society. Example, must is synonymous with may. Example, summons is synonymous with invitation. Example, understand is synonymous with stand under. Know who you are. If you go to court, corporate place of business, you are asked immediately for your name. They even presume to know who you are and will ask you as such. Mr. Harris? Mr. is the title of something with legal personality status. I was named by my parents. That name did not include Mr. If I reply yes, guess what I have agreed to represent? A man cannot be acted upon by statutes. These only apply to the fictional entity with legal personality, i.e. Mr. John Harris, Mr. J. Harris. Common law versus statute rules policy. The only basic principles that any people of any nation need to adhere to are those of natural law, which are mirrored in common law: never harm or cause loss. Common law applies to man or woman. Statute rules apply to the person only when man or woman consents to represent the person. So think that one through. If you don't consent to represent the person, then the rules cannot be applied to you. Consent can only be given in action as well as action. Consent can be given by inaction as well as action. Within common law exists the word justice. Within statute rules, you will just receive summary judgment. You broke the rules of contract, you lose. You're a man or a woman, you have a person. So in this example, man is John Harris and the person is Mr. J. Harris, all capital letters prefixed with Mr. Exists naturally, whereas the person is a fictional entity. The man created by the divine, the person created by government, which is what your birth certificate was all about. That was the creation of the person. Subject to common law jurisdiction is the man, and the person is subject to civil policy jurisdiction. The man must never harm another or cause another any form of loss. The person must fulfill all duties given and governed by corporate policy, tax, etc. under statute. The man is free and unlimited ability to contract and settle debt in private under commercial law. The person does business in the public, controlled by civil and corporate courts. So what is a person? They are inviting a person created by the United Kingdom Corporation. Your person was created when your birth was registered and is evidenced by your birth certificate. Man created government, which in turn created persons. Your person is not you. It is a legal fiction which you are falsely identifying with. You don't get to say what its rights and duties are. The United Kingdom Corporation does. But it has misled you into doing so via deception. Define person. This includes natural person, firm, co-partnership, association, limited liability company, or corporation, legal personality. But how can you define a person as including a natural person? Defining a word with the very same word is failing to define anything. And yet this definition is from Black's Law 8th edition. By the way, if you want to look at all of the Black's Law editions, I have loaded them onto a blog page and I'll put a link in the description of this video for you. Person is defined as a fiction in Black's Law 3rd edition. Birth certificate, how the person is created as a bonded slave. Certified copy, which is not the original. Name of the person being created, the capitalized surname. Name of persons, father and mother, capitalized surnames. Informant, qualification needed to inform. father, mother to inform on the child being born. Declaration from a man or a woman to prove a man or a woman was present to present the person needed to create the new person's legal personality. Registration and your children, and this one's really important as well. To this day, registration still means the same thing, i.e. that transfer of legal title to the body you have registered it with. As you have seen, the worst possible way this process could have been abused is the registration of births. And obviously we haven't seen that. He'll be talking about what he was giving in his talk, but it's very, very important. A simple show of how your child no longer belongs to us is this. Mandatory vaccinations, mandatory schooling, holiday, the children, when they say you can and not before, they tell you how to manage their property, and if you don't do it their way, their approved guardians take your children away, the Social Services PLC. And please consider this. Could government actually take your car away and crush it lawfully if you actually owned it? It would be totally unlawful. So in using the process of registering your vehicle, they dupe you into handing over legal title of that vehicle ownership, and you get a V5 document as the registered keeper, in other words, permission to use it as long as it's used in accordance with all of their rules. If they did not dupe you into this, the very act of taking and crushing your property would be a crime under common law. Also, by registering, you, as stated, agree to abide by the rules and to do so in their society. This is how they levy the fuel duty, road tax and MOT requirement on the vehicle. Please remember, when you register something, anything, you are giving up ownership, possession of, to it, and instead you get a certificate of title. This is worthless, and this is why you own nothing, not even your own children. Fixed penalty notices issued by such corporations. So why are there so many fixed penalty notices being given for the most ludicrous reasons? Bins being too full or put out in the wrong place, parking in a place a corporation deems you can't, speed cameras, not completing a SORN, the list is endless. But what are these notices in the real world being issued by these corporations who never stop dreaming up reasons for penalising you? Penalised by way of forfeit, something surrendered or subject to surrender as punishment for a breach of contract. Fixed penalty notice is an offer to accept an adhesion contract. An adhesion contract, a type of contract, a legally binding agreement between two parties to do a certain thing, in which one side has all the bargaining power and uses it to write the contract primarily to his or her advantage. A notice is not a bill. A notice is not a demand. A notice is nothing more than an offer to discuss the contract the offerer is trying to force upon your person. This is simply a tool of revenue collection. The true reason why these fixed penalty notices are forced upon your person is simply to maintain the illusion that they have control over your life, fortune and freedom because you fear their ability to take something from you you deem valuable. Money is not the currency, you are. You believe money is valuable. You work to get the money. So is the money really valuable, or the work you are doing to get the money? In reality, you are the only valuable commodity because of the work you do, and the only way you will do the work is to be promised you will receive more money for that work. Can you see the trap there? It's a lawful rebellion. Peacefully resist all claims against your person by refusing to consent to the corporation's policy. Always ask, am I obliged to answer your questions? Under what authority and under what law are you acting? Remind them that failure to differentiate between a statute and a law is gross negligence, which is equivalent to fraud. This applies to anyone who is trying to enforce a statute upon you, no matter who they are. Now, I thought that was some really interesting stuff, and I thought it might give you some stuff to have a think about. And with that in mind, I want to say thank you very much for all your support, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. And by the way, don't forget to bookmark my blog, and if you haven't signed up for our weekly updates, you might want to do that just in case YouTube give me a third and final strike. Take care of yourselves. Bye bye.